Welcome back to the big board. I thought I'd try and give you a quick summary of the activity of the last two turns and give you a feel for some of the gameplay in a nutshell, I guess, versus an extensive how-to or tutorial. So over here, the Greek, let's call them the Greek rebels, just to keep things clean, and then the Macedonians. Leosthenes started here. He picked up some mercs, contract for hire combat veterans from the Spartan region, and he had a force sitting in this in Corinth here, or Corinthos, as its traditional archaic name is. And so he initially opened his movement by picking up these forces along the way, and then he went to Plataea, where he spent, got there and requested the surrender of Plataea, which they indeed did do. So actually, I wrote down here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a +5 movement points for what I thought was going to end up being a siege, but it actually didn't, because they surrendered very quickly, just based on the odds. You look at a table, and based on the odds and some leader adjustments and stuff like that, see whether the chaps will surrender, and if they don't surrender, then you go to siege. There was an army here, a Boeotian army here, as Fabrizio had mentioned, commenting in Facebook on my posts, that the loss here was so egregious that the general's name was also lost to time. In fact, I've got his counter here somewhere. Where is it? I took it off the map, I think. Where did he go? Here he is here. So he has just called him the Boeotian... Oops. Let me just hold this up for you. Try and get the focus on Archos, which is leader, right? So we moved to this hex. Paid an extra 3 movement points to execute an attack. We just used the land combat, i.e. the combat model that you can execute on this map, versus going over to the tactical map and laying all the counters out and having that combat. Just given that I felt like it was going to be pretty much a whitewash anyway, and didn't feel like going through the exercise of running that battle down at the detail level. And in fact, it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you guys have seen the Rome Total War PC game, where you can play on the strategic map and then you can dive down and run each individual battle. You're basically getting to do that and choose how you manage that exercise. Although I will say that the land combat's a little bit more involved than perhaps Rome Total War's point-and-click exercise, right? So ran that battle. That battle ran just for 2 rounds of combat, and there was an attempt by the Boeotians to retreat before the combat. They realized that they were up shit creek, and so they failed that roll, which meant they had to stand and fight at least 1 round, and so they did that. And then it didn't really go that badly for them the first round, so they thought, well, we'll hang in for 1 more. And that's when things got ugly. And so after 2 rounds, they were in dire straits and routed. And then the rout literally killed off the rest of the enemy forces, barring the leader. No replacements for them, so they're out of the game. Which then left me with a handful of... movement points left. We went across on the ferry here, asked Chalkis to surrender. They also agreed to do that, and that then set us up to then end that movement for Leosthenes. And then I brought this fleet in. It was down here, so I think here. Brought the fleet in with some supply and split that up, and then moved some supply up to here. Actually, I did that out of order, didn't I? I moved Army 3 up to Lamia here to request a surrender, of Lamia, it did not convert or surrender, so we immediately assaulted, and successfully destroyed the enemy forces. There weren't enemy. Was there an enemy force? I'm trying to think. I think there was. There was a phalanx unit, garrison unit here. So we defeated those guys. Took that. Then moved this here. Split the fleet, took some supply. Fleet 4 has some supply in it, I hope. We'll find out in a second. Yes, there it is there with the leader. It has 4 triremes and just 2 supply in it. Going through all this movement, you are expected to manage supply and foraging as well. So you've got to keep track of where you spend your movement points in a given province or area or supply area. You see these little dotted lines form some of the boundaries. There's provincial boundaries, and then these sort of supply boundaries, breaking things up into forageable areas and stuff like that. So we did all that as well. When Leosthenes left or entered into this area here, which I can't remember what it's called. There's a name for it here somewhere. Halys, I guess. Oh no, that's Halys there. It doesn't matter. We depleted that because it only had three forage capability. You can see that little 3 there. I appreciate the archaic kind of ancient font, but they are a little bit hard to read sometimes. Anyway, so that all happened. And then the Macedonians got to move. They moved down, and after actually Thessalians were here, we moved them to join up somewhere in this area. I don't know where they are at the moment, or where they ended up on the first turn. But the Macedonians moved down, took Larissa, and moved one of their armies to Gonfoy here, and then they proceeded to head south to Phasalos, or was it actually no, it was here, Pherae here. So they moved to here and attempted to, I think they took care of that city and captured that city. It's kind of a long video, isn't it? Next turn, let's fast forward through all the administrative stuff. I ended up with Army 1 picking up Army 2 and Army 4, the Thessalians, somewhere in and around here. Well, I'd already picked up Army 2. I just picked up the Thessalians, moved on to Pherae, which is where Antipatros was, the leader of the Macedonian army. And he had a fairly strong force, but phalanx heavy, with some heavy cav as well. And that really was just a massive beatdown. And I'll show you that ended up taking 4 rounds of combat. So that was a long fight. You achieve or receive DRMs to benefit your die roll, because both sides roll. So if I'm attacking at 2-1, I'll attack you and I'll receive DRMs for having the most hoplites or the most infantry, or having the most heavy cavalry, or having a 2-1 advantage in cavalry, or having a 2-1 advantage or some advantage with skirmishes. And that'll be 99% of all of your DRMs you're going to receive on the CRT. And then you will then receive terrain bonuses depending on what the terrain is. And the defender, similarly, when they're rolling on the CRT, they're going to look at their odds, which will be not good, like 1-2 or 1-3. They may have, if they have a minimum number of heavy infantry, they'll get a DRM for that. Same with the cav and stuff like that. So then they both roll, and then those combat results are inflicted upon the enemy. And there's a morale that's calculated based on total morale of the faction. It's a percentage of the number of steps that you have in your army. That's going to give you your morale for the battle. And as you accrue step losses, you'll end up with what ends up being a positive number, subtracting taking the losses you have minus your current morale, and once that gets to 0 or positive, I believe, then you rout. So that's, in a nutshell, how combat works. It's pretty straightforward. I actually posted a full combat on the blog on bigboardgaming.com. You can go read it there. It was the very first combat we did against a Boeotian, so it's only a couple of rounds. Not hard to follow, I hope. Assuming I got most of it right. I did make one error, but it's de minimis and not going to affect. Didn't affect the combat results at all. This is the losses for the battle. 2 phalanx units, 3 hip assist units, which are just a variation of heavy infantry, and then 3 heavy cav and a light cav. There's a sequencing that has to go into the losses. You lose skirmishers first, then you lose cavalry, and then anything in excess of that, then you can start choosing what you lose. All for the loss of 1 heavy cav and 1 light cav. I don't think I had any other losses. I may have had 1 step of infantry somewhere. I had to flip an infantry unit for the Greeks, for the rebels. But that was really kind of where we're at. And now that really means I'm going to go look at the scenario, but I don't think there's any major reinforcements for a handful of turns. So I'm going to have a look at that and then do the dice rolling to see when and who will arrive for the Macedonians, and then we'll kind of fast forward there and make some assumptions around, or some quick die rolls around the Greeks securing their objectives as they go along. Right, thought I'd share all that with you. The fate of all. Ciao.